Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Mustang Owners Podcast. I'm your host, John Clore. I'm the Enthusiast Communications Manager for Ford Performance, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mike Ray, the president of the Mustang Owners Club of Southeastern Michigan, or MOXM, and the president of the International Council of Mustang Clubs. And in case that wasn't enough, Mike also runs BOXM, which is the Bronco Owners Club of Southeastern Michigan. Mike, this is crazy, but we have to tell everyone, everybody's got a Mustang story, and that's why we work so hard to bring you all the inside stories of all the characters, the collectors, the celebrities, and, the owners that make the Mustang hobby so cool. And tonight, Mike, we have a very special guest. I don't even want to tell everybody how long I've known this guest, but Mikey, I know, being a Mustang fan, especially a Fox body guy, this name is a name you'll recognize immediately.
Yeah, I'm still in my head. I'm trying to think when was the first time I met them, and I'm thinking it was 16 or 17 years ago. So we'll visit that as well.
Gotcha beat. Anyway, tonight I want everyone to welcome Cari Southworth of Kenny Brown Performance. Cari, welcome to the Mustang Owners Podcast.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to talking Mustang with you.
Oh, Cari, it's been 800 years. I think first the earth cooled, then the dinosaurs died, and then I met you and Kenny. Was that pretty much how it went?
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, we've known for years.
I don't know if a lot of our listeners know this, but, I didn't get to Ford till 1995. And in those previous years, I worked at Auto Week magazine. And, Cari, I still have every Auto Week magazine since it went to a magazine format under my boss, Jim Sawyer, which you'll remember, wow. Jim. Mm-hmm. All the way up until I left in 1995 to go to Ford. I have them in binders right here in my office. And believe this or not, Mike, at car magazines, some people can't hide their feelings. They were supposed to be impartial. Back in the day when journalists were actual journalists, were supposed to be impartial. And I couldn't hide my affection for Ford Motor Company and the Mustang, just as some people on that staff there were Porsche people and, Ferrari people, Mike, the kind of people you hang around with.
Yeah.
and then there was, our copy chief, she loved Volvos. So, I never talked to her. She had some issues. And then everybody had their favorites, but it came pretty obvious when I'd see someone come to the office with a Mustang or a Ford that I wanted to drive it and I wanted to test it out and I wanted to write about it. And I got to tell you, Cari, when I first met Kenny, and he came a knocking with some of the greatest stuff. I knew of him only because, Mike, as you know, he made Steve Saleen Fox Buddy race cars go fast. And being the crew chief for that program, what he learned, Cari, being the engineer that he was, you just know after Steve was done racing that Kenny had to keep doing something. And share us a little bit of that background of how he got so involved in the hobby after his work with the Saleen racing program went away.
Okay, sure. He wasn't at all I'll go back a little bit further. He was into open wheel cars. He raced them, built them, and managed the teams and stuff like that. He got called in. Steve called him to start the team up in '86. So he started from a fresh slate, had nothing but the body shell, built all the cars, engineered them, ran them. By '87, they won 4 national championships. I mean, that's an incredible feat, beating Porsche in the Escort Endurance Series. So to me, that's just a phenomenal feat. I mean, that a lot of dedication and intelligence went into that. But after the Saleen program, people started calling and saying, "Hey, I know about the Saleen program. I know you built those cars. I want one. I want a car." And so he started building street cars, mainly performance street cars. And some track days weren't really in right then, but they were starting to come into vogue.
Yeah, I don't think you're right. But he was a track guy, Cari, and but guys like Mike Ray, who owned Fox Body Mustangs, they wanted a handling car as well, even though, it was definitely 0 to 60 in street stuff. But having a Kenny Brown part on your car and having Kenny look at your car, and back then you could go up to Kenny and say, "This is what I want," and he kind of engineered a solution for you.
Yeah, exactly, and we still do that to this day in a different respect. So, but yeah, and he's really I always look at him as a visionary. He always could predict the market ahead of time.
Yeah.
He was just incredible about product innovator and things like that. But what he thought he was more of a car builder. And then when he couldn't find what he needed for the car to make it a balanced package, he would engineer and develop, and then we'd manufacture those products. So yeah, he's just incredible. The cars are so balanced too. That's one thing that he always did. Power was never as big as having the balanced package. His performance platform is chassis, suspension, wheels, tires, brakes. You have to have that before you can add power, and then you have to engineer the power and the performance platform to work together so it drove well. And you know that, John. You drove many of his cars.
Oh my God. I don't want to tell everybody. I would push people out of the way, and Sawyer was another guy he'd like to, but Mike, he would come in, all the other tuners, your buddies out there, Steedas and Celine's, and, this was before Roush was even making cars, and he'd come into the office with some great piece and put on an owner car and want us to drive it. And it was Jim Sawyer, Cari, that went out to MIS to do our track testing.
Okay.
But I would steal the car to drive it, street driving, because I wanted to write about it. But if I didn't get to go, see, when Mike, it worked like this, kind of like you're the president of Mox and I'm the vice president. When you're the managing editor of Auto Week, you go get to play with the cars at the test track. When you're the deputy managing editor, like I was, I stayed in the office and had to put out a magazine. See, so that's why, Cari, I stole him, and Kenny and I mean, we hit it off, and the only thing, Cari, and you got to help me on this, he didn't laugh at half of my jokes. So, and you, Cari, what was the deal? Was he like the typical engineer that he had a real dry sense of humor?
Oh, yeah, he did. He had a very dry sense of humor, and he wouldn't laugh a lot. So, yeah. In fact, for photo shoots, I'd always say, smile, and he'd go, I'm smiling.
Smile, yeah.
I said, no, you need to smile. Go like this. In fact, we have a picture of his granddaughter trying to make him smile for a picture, and she's going, say cheese. So, yeah, he just didn't have one of those. You didn't know if he's smiling or not. He had to really pucker it up. But, yeah, so he didn't laugh. He laughed a lot, but it was more of a dry sense of humor.
Yeah,
he loved you, John, though.
Oh, I don't know. I really, after I left Auto Week, I wanted to come down and work for you guys. I know Jim and I came down and talked to you about marketing, and because we love your company is just what the Mustang enthusiast world is all about, and what Kenny and you did for people. What struck me, though, there's so many people get into doing a Mustang and doing a car and offering a parts package, and that's all wonderful. But Kenny didn't stop there. He always kind of like when he showed up at Auto Week with that MN12 Thunderbird that he cut into about the size of a Mustang. And I kept looking, I go, Kenny, what happened here? He goes, well, it's about this much. I think he cut out the whole rear floor. He actually cut that car apart, put a Mustang Cobra drivetrain in it, and wanted me to drive it. And we remember we got it in the magazine, and people thought, that wasn't your business, but he was just a natural tinkerer?
Well, I think I can't remember how that came out. I can't remember if that's from Ford, Thunderbird Group talking to him about it. I think that's how it came about. And so we built that. He took 8 inches out of it, and it was, And so it was pretty interesting ordeal. I think we only built 5 of those, but because they were pretty complex. But yeah, they're still around too.
I know. Mike, can you imagine having anybody in today's Mustang world taking on a whole nother car, chopping it up, and by God, Cari, that thing, you'd never know it. It felt like a wider, bigger track Mustang, and boy, that thing, it stuck to the ground like it was on rails. I was so blown away by that, and that's when I started hanging around with you guys a little bit more. And Mike, you would think that's the craziest car in the world, especially being president of one of the largest Mustang clubs on the continents. Is that why your membership got so into Kenny Brown?
I'm trying to think back. So it had to be 2006, 7, or 8. It was one of those years. We were at Greenmead at the Mustang Memory Show. And Cari, I don't know if you remember this. You guys were parked by a tree. is where the car was. It was underneath a nice shade where everybody else was sweating. And that's where you guys were. That's when I first met everybody there. And I remember the feedback there of how great it was to have them there. And, it was very, very well received. The name is iconic. Everybody appreciates it in the hobby for sure.
Thank you. That's
no, well,
nice.
Cari, what it was is that when Moxham got you guys to come out, it's like, how do you know you guys were considered like the insiders of the Mustang performance world because, Kenny built race cars, and that's when you guys were doing those track packages, and you could go down there. Didn't you? What was it, Putnam Park?
Yeah.
Didn't you always offered a driving school, didn't you?
Yeah, we did a number of driving schools, and we typically would partner with like a magazine at that point, like Muscle Mustang Fast Forward we did a lot with, and we'd always do some at Putnam Park, a lot at Watkins Glen, Road America, and we'd go in and we'd partner with a driving school, and we would have our own contingency in there, and we would do tire temperatures. Kenny would do tech trainings over the lunch hour. It was just a full gamut of learning how to drive and getting coached and learning how to set your car up.
Well, and as you got to that point, and Mike, even though he cut his teeth really in that Mustang world on the Fox body, his work on the SN95s, when our Cobras came out, Kenny would come to Dearborn quite often, and he was approaching Ford. By the time I got to Ford in 1995, hey, can you introduce me to the SVT group? And Cari, I have to tell you this, and I probably told Kenny this a million times. Sometimes his stuff was so good, he was afraid to show it to them because, he didn't patent it, or, he was afraid a lot of it would get lifted. Mike, kind of like all your marketing ideas.
Yes, been there, done that. Yeah.
You opened your mouth and said that in a Ford meeting, and then all of a sudden it showed up on somebody's PowerPoint.
Exactly. Happens all the time. Yeah.
No, that's what happened. And I felt Kenny was trying to protect but he wanted to share it, Cari. He wanted, and especially when we started racing Cobras, the SN95s with the Cobra R's, the 95R, and then he really wanted to share his knowledge that he learned on the track with those cars with Ford, because we got into people racing. He really wanted to make that, and I couldn't make that partnership happen. And even after Mike's favorite car, the S197, came out, again, Kenny's designs, well, you're the guy that had the tubular K member on the SN95. Can we make an S197 handle again? And by God, you could. And I think that's what everybody in our hobby really appreciate, why we appreciated Kenny Brown Performance. It was, you guys were just considered like the racer's choice, the insider's choice, Mike, much like a classic Mustang guy would appreciate the Holman and Moody name.
Yeah. Kenny did have a pretty renowned. I want to go back to the point where you said about his products, and he was kind of, protective of them. He finally got to the point where he said, people are copying my products. That's going to happen. I'm just going to put more products out there. So he instead of patenting them, because it's such a long process, he would just create more and more. And he was, you don't know this, John, about him. He could create more products in an afternoon than we could develop and market in a year. I mean, he was just on there. I mean, it's amazing what he came out with. And what's interesting is people didn't necessarily copy him directly, but they would do it, but they didn't know the nuances of what he did. Like his geometry. I don't think anybody ever got the geometry that he has. And so on his cars, and that's why they handled so well. Or they still do.
Yeah, and so Mike, when Jim Sawyer and I, after I left Auto Week, Jim went to SVT as well. He was the PR manager. I did communications, and we would always, Cari, we'd talk about that, about the geometry of his cars, and we'd talk about, especially because we were selling Cobra R's at the time, but we would also mention that he was so focused on that stuff. And when we met you, Cari, we was on the marketing side. And I know you brought that to him, and sometimes he'd be so focused on that part, and you were always trying to bring him into the world of, well, how do we put this out in the Mustang world? And Mike, it's like anything else that we see in the Mustang world. It's, a lot of people that have great ideas, but they're not connected. And
Yeah.
Cari, we remember you first of all trying to get him to laugh at my jokes and understand one of them was a joke. Kenny, it wasn't. I'm not the other one. And then I thought his mind went a mile a minute. And I remember, believe this or not, Mike, we somehow got talking about, my kids were in hockey and I was driving a Windstar, and then Kenny goes, Windstar? Yeah, he wanted to make something for soccer moms. And then guess what happened? He took a Windstar and made this high performance insane mobile that he showed up with and wanted me to drive it. Cari, did the man ever sleep and stop working on stuff?
And that Windstar project, the tag name for it was Cool Enough for Dad to Drive, is what it was. And he actually built that car for me. He was so excited.
No way.
Yes.
Yeah, he built it for me. Now realize we have one child, okay? And so I'm not a soccer mom. But anyway, and we did stuff like you don't need a Windstar for one child. So anyway, he built it. I said, I'm not driving that thing. He ended up driving it. He loved it so much. So,
I had it for a week, Mike. That thing would smoke the front tires. It sounded wicked. It had this wicked exhaust system on it. That thing was so much fun. It was lower. I don't know what he did to the suspension, because Windstar suspensions were famous for blowing springs out the front. And I own two of them, Cari, I should know. But that's when I decided that Kenny Brown is a certified Ford nut. And I begged my wife, Jenny, because when Kenny retires this car, because Cari, I didn't know if, I didn't want to tell anybody, that I'm this performance guy. I worked at Auto Week and then SVT, and I'm driving a Windstar. I'd wear a Nixon mask because people, I want to see. But I was hoping when you guys were done with that car, when it was out of your, I think, did you move on to an Explorer after that, I think?
I think we were doing Explorers and SUVs at that time, supercharged, and Kenny would do his whole thing. He'd lower it and exhaust.
Put the blowers on.
I remember the Explorers, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so, Mike, I asked Jenny, can I buy that Windstar? I'm sure he'd give me a smoking idea.
Yeah, I forgot you wanted to buy that.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember I sent you notes? And you said, well, when Kenny's done with it, and Mike, if there's one thing you learn about Kenny Brown is what he was really never done with anything. And Cari, bless your soul for rescuing him from himself, because he was so focused on performance and track and capability and handling, and he had numbers in his head. And what a life you lived with that man. And how did that rub off on you after his passing? You helped him through his health issues, and we thought he made a great comeback for a while. And when you got him through that, everybody, not just me, but everybody thought, well, you'll just say, that was his deal, and you're going to go on to doing what you like. But apparently, Kenny Brown Performance is what you like.
I love Kenny Brown Performance. I mean, I've been with him forever. I co-founded the business with him after the Sleen days, and I kind of ran the company. So everything went on after he passed from the operational standpoint. I also test drove all the cars with him. Every single car that went out of our facility, he would test drive.
Wow.
And I would test drive with him. So now I'm test driving the cars and signing them off and making sure, it has a correct rebound and, and stuff like that. So, but he, I don't know, he was just, what was your question? I just lost it.
No, I mean, how did you, after his passing, you wanted to keep that business going. And so, I mean, you really had the interest in continuing Kenny Brown Performance.
Oh, yeah. And our whole staff is very passionate about it. And what's interesting that Kenny did, and I don't know if he did this purposely or not, because, he had that illness and he was really sick. Yeah. And then we got back into the business again. And I don't know if he did this purposely or not, but he recorded everything. We have so many technical documentation that we can go back and refer to. He trained everybody really well. And he has just a huge new product development chart that we go through, and we're knocking off stuff on there. I mean, we can go for years without following what he wanted us to do. And what we're doing is we're following how he built cars and keeping that in check and going forward. And that's how we're going forward. We know enough about that and what he taught us. The other thing that he did, John, is he him and I put together the Speed Therapy Academy, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. But there are so many recordings on that, and his Cars and Coffee that he did, the live show he did every Saturday morning. He has so much information on that. If you go to the YouTube channel, people binge watch in there because he has so much information in there. So one of his concerns was, I have all this knowledge. What am I going to do with it?
Yeah.
So over a Saturday night wine and, little party between the two of us, we sat down and thought, okay, how can you share this knowledge? And he's always wanted to share his knowledge, but with the technology now you can do it. Right. So we started with do you mind me going on, or do we have time? We do want to get, in fact, Mike, we do want to talk about where Cari is with but I have to mention one thing of what Mike Ray started. And, we want to thank our sponsor for tonight's Mustang Owners Podcast, and that's the SVT store. And a lot of people may recognize the owner of that, Marcy Cipriani, who used to be working with SVT for a while, and she runs the SVT store. It's called svtstore.com. And Mike, somehow you got on the SVT store Mustang Owners Podcast apparel.
Right here. There's jackets, hoodies, polos, t-shirts, hats, you name it, it's on there. So go visit the svtstore.com. Get your merch today, yeah?
And while you're at it, make sure that when you get on our channel, either on Apple or Spotify, or now, Mike, on the YouTube channel, that you click on that subscription button as well as the notification bell so that you can know every time a new episode is loaded. But we're talking to Cari Southworth of Kenny Brown Performance. And Cari, that's what we really are interested in today. The fact that you're still cranking out parts, you have a catalog that's available, you're still meeting with people, and now you're looking to expand that communications of what you're up to with, are you going to go back to a broadcast? Are you going on YouTube, a live stream?
Yeah,
what are you planning now?
Yeah, we're going to probably go back to that probably late spring, early summer. Go back to the live broadcast. Right now, we're still playing his we're playing his reruns or his encore presentation. So every Saturday you can still watch that. So it's still ongoing. But if you want some really good information, go to the Kenny Brown Performance YouTube channel. There's tons of information on there on every different platform of Mustang, brakes, suspension, cooling, giving you little tips. It's pretty phenomenal what he did there. But yeah, that's.
So looking on the site, I've got it up now. I mean, you guys here are in S550 land. So doesn't matter, Mike. I know you wish you had your SVO back, but we both now own S197s. But to see the stuff that you guys still have for that, and now they can just go to kennybrown.com and check out the stuff that's available. And then you kind of still get that personal guidance when you contact you guys. You guys, do it like a consultation with like, what do you want? What do you want to do with your car? And then you guide them from there.
Yeah, what we found out is there's a lot of people out there that are grabbing information from all over, but it's not necessarily, reliable. So we have a performance specialist through Kenny Brown, and you can come on for a free 15-minute consult. If you have a tech question, we'll answer that. Something's happening to your car. If you want a build plan, we create a build plan for people. Like, okay, this is what I've done to my car so far. Where do I go if I want to do track days? Where do I go if I want just performance driving? And we'll put together a step-by-step build plan. Like here, you start at the chassis, the suspension, and then we'll go on wheels, tires, brakes, engine, cooling, whatever they want. We kind of talk to them about their budget and what they want, and we send that out to them. And they love that. I mean, they don't know, people don't, that's what they want. They don't know that they want it until they find out that we do that. And then we do this build plan for them. And that's just free of charge. It's something that Kenny wanted to do, and we're continuing it.
That's awesome. Mike, didn't you, when you talk about buying performance parts, a lot of our members in the club, they ask around, what did you do to somebody else? But sometimes you buy the wrong thing. You didn't get anybody at the company to tell you what it does. Maybe it didn't work right. And I think that's kind of like a differentiator for Kenny Brown Performance over a lot of places where you grab a catalog and say, well, I guess this will work, and order it. And you really didn't talk to anybody.
Yeah. Right. And all you do is talk to an order taker. You don't talk to somebody that actually has knowledge. So
you call up and you go, hello, this is Bob. What country am I calling? No, you're actually, but if you look on kennybrown.com, Cari, that's just so fitting from knowing you and Kenny the way I've known you guys over the years, that you continue to offer that kind of personal service when people want to make their Mustang better. And the fact that you go all the way from the Fox all the way up to the current cars, no matter if you want to go on a track, maybe learn something more about the car, and if you're into the handling part and the performance end, to know that you're still there. And I'm so excited that you're going to launch into, a new communications platform. You can reach out. And Mike, I know our membership of Moxum would be very interested, because a Kenny Brown part has power when you use that name. Oh, really? It's not like John Clore's Joe Schmuck part that I made up from something I bought from the J.C. Whitney catalog.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know, Cari, I would love to help you through my channels, through the local Mustang Club, the International Council. Love to help out and promote for you.
I love that, Mike. I'd like to have a conversation with you, actually. I thought, I haven't seen you for a long time, so that would be great. One thing I
Absolutely.
Well, we'll
wanted to
get
add
you
up-
out to the next big events, Cari, and we were really looking forward to seeing more from Kenny Brown Performance, and can't wait to see you in person again. And I really appreciate tonight you taking the time to get on the podcast and tell us about all the new exciting things. I know Kenny's legacy lives on in every single Mustang part you sell, and we're really happy you took the time tonight to be with us.
Thank you. I have one more thing to add. I'm going to tease you with this.
Okay.
I want to talk to you about the heritage cars, and we're not going to talk about it now. I'm going to make you have me on your podcast again so we can talk about that. How's that sound?
Perfect.
Pretty cool.
Mike and I are into heritage stuff completely, aren't we, Mike?
Cari, if you want to unveil a heritage car, we might know a couple of events you might be able to do that at.
Okay, cool. Cool.
On our platforms, that would be absolutely great, Cari. We're looking forward to that. Anything,
Okay, cool.
especially that's what makes the hobby so great. It's not the kid that came out and he's got a 55,000 followers on Instagram, and he sells you these wonderful stickers. But Kenny Brown Performance, it's a lot more than a sticker. So glad that you can share that time with us, Cari.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate having me on, and it's so great to see both of you again.
Well, Mike, we'll have to make sure that we get to see Cari and the Kenny Brown crew in person next time we get out and about this year. So try to make that happen, won't you, Mikey?
Cari, I will be reaching out and we'll get in touch soon.
Great. Thank
Awesome
you.
stuff. Well, folks, that's a wrap for this edition of the Mustang Owners Podcast. But don't forget to check out the enthusiast section of FordPerformance.com this week, where all the cool enthusiast stories are lining up every single Thursday. But check that out. And if you want to know what Mike's Mega Club is up to, check out Moxum.com as well. And if you've got a Mustang that you want registered with Ford Motor Company, make sure you get onto SpecialVehicleRegistry.com, get your Mustang registered, and then you can be part of this fantastic thing that we call the Mustang hobby. If you have any suggestions or comments, make sure you can send them to us at clubhub@ford.com. So until next time, we'll just have to catch you down the road.